Today is November 12th, 2025, and this is Read Through the Bible Recap Edition.
Recap edition of 2 Samuel.
That's right.
So we finished 2 Samuel in the morning, and here it is in the afternoon. And what we've liked to do, we've received good feedback from that, is just recap the book of 2 Samuel.
Right. So 2 Samuel is all about King David.
First Samuel is about King Saul, mostly, and 2 Samuel is about King David.
Right. And so in 2 Samuel, David rises to fame and power and glory in chapters 1 through 10. And then 11 through the end, it's his fall.
Yep. This is the rise and fall of King David. All right. And so with these micro summaries, what we've done is really tried to limit them as much as we can. In many chapters in 2 Samuel, if you are familiar with the story, just even one name might even be helpful. We bring up a name, you're like, oh, okay, I know kind of the story behind that. I know what's going on in that chapter. And our goal of these micro summaries is to give you something really small to kind of look at in 2 Samuel so that you can kind of get some hooks for what happens in all the rest of the chapter. And with these micro summaries, I encourage you can just write them down, even in the white space, if you got a book next to 2 Samuel. And by the way, for my book, the 26-27 year edition, I'm going to put some spaces for micro summaries. Much smaller, you got to write them with a lot fewer words, but I'll put places there. But you got an intentionally left blank page. To the right of that, you can put 2 Samuel there, and you also put 1 Kings there when we finish 1 Kings. Okay, so here the rise of David, chapter 1.
Okay, chapter 1, David laments Saul.
Because Saul had died in the end of 1 Samuel. Yep.
Okay, 2, David and Ishbosheth become kings.
Yeah, and if you know your geography, that's Ishbosheth in the north and in Israel, and David in the south in Judah.
And Ishbosheth was son of Saul.
Yep.
Chapter 3, Abner killed.
Okay, so we're going to see a lot of deaths here coming about, just as David becomes ruler over everything. But in chapter 3, Abner was killed. Abner was the military leader for Saul, who then, one of Saul's sons, Ishbosheth, then he just kind of began to be the military commander of Ishbosheth,
And in fact, I think Abner is the one who really helped Ishbosheth rise to power.
Yep. So, and then he
got killed here in chapter 3.
Yep, because he defected from Ishbosheth because he saw it was going downhill, and then Joab went ahead and killed him anyway. So chapter 3 is Abner killed. Chapter 4 is
Ishbosheth killed.
Yeah, there's a king in the north, Rechab and Baanah. Remember those guys came up and took him on his bed.
Yep, and then so chapter 5 follows after that, where David became king of all Israel.
Yep, so really chapters 1 through 5 talk about just even his becoming king.
Right.
If you want to kind of bracket those out. So he becomes king by Saul passed away, so David laments, and then Ishbosheth becomes king, and then all these murders, and now David is king over all of Israel. Okay, chapter 6.
Yep, that took 7 years.
Yep.
Okay, so chapter 6, Uzzah and the Ark.
Okay, so Uzzah is a story about the guy who touched the ark, and the Lord struck him down. But there's also a second half to chapter 6 as well, is like when the ark comes in.
Right, into Jerusalem. David's setting up his capital city and wants to bring the ark there.
Yeah, so our micro summary says Uzzah and the ark, so just remembering that Uzzah died because he touched the ark, but the ark then comes into Jerusalem as well.
Chapter 7, Davidic covenant.
Yeah. Big ding, 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 ding. Maybe put a box around that.
Very important chapter.
Yeah. The one will sit on the throne of David forever.
God will establish David's house.
Yep.
But David cannot build a temple.
That's right.
Okay. Chapter 8, David's victories.
Yep. So you can remember this, just right after chapter 7, after David receives a covenant, he's going out and having all these military victories.
Okay, chapter 9, kindness to Mephibosheth.
Yeah, and these are one of those chapters. If you just remember chapter 9 is Mephibosheth, that's going to help you to remember just Mephibosheth is the lame son of Jonathan. And David just showed kindness to him for the sake of Jonathan. But Mephibosheth is what chapter 9 is about. And chapter 10 is about
Hanun's disrespect.
Yeah, so chapter 10 is about Hanun. So if you remember him, his father died. And
he's
David,
like the king of Syria or Assyria.
Yeah, some other kingdom. And David sent men to mourn him, and they said, "Oh, no, you're spies." And so they, de-shirted them, I think, and then they cut their beards in half, and he said, "No, you just stay for a while until your beards have grown again." But that, if you remember, Hanun, chapter 10, Hanun, chapter 9, Mephibosheth, chapter 10, Hanun, and so this is all the rise of David, and then we have the climax, which is his sin, which leads to his downfall.
Yep, chapter 11, sin with Bathsheba.
Yep, And again, like if you just remember a name, chapter 11, Bathsheba, you know all about the sin there, but we're adding just a few other words just to kind of help if you don't remember what that is. So it's kindness to Mephibosheth, Hanun's disrespect, and here it is, sin with Bathsheba. And in chapter 12, we have
Nathan confronts David.
Yeah, so Nathan is the key figure right there. If you just remember that, he confronts David. David repents, writes Psalm 51, and then right now everything's going to crash. First with his family, chapter 13.
Okay, 13. Amnon violates Tamar, then killed by Absalom.
Yeah, this is just a horrific event where brothers and sisters are
terrible strife within David's family.
Yeah,
and
so
kids.
Yeah, so Absalom kills Amnon. If you're familiar with the story, then he's got to flee, and so he's out of the city.
Right. Okay. 14. Wise woman of Tekoa. Absalom returns.
Yep, and she's the one that negotiated basically the return under the guise of Joab, who said, "I want you to go and kind of tell the story like Nathan did, and just show that Absalom needs to be in the city. Your son, right? Bring him back to the city." So he was exiled in chapter 13 because he killed Amnon, who violated his sister, and then here in chapter 14 he comes back in because of the counsel of the wise woman of Tekoa.
Okay, 15. Absalom's conspiracy. David flees.
Yeah, this is where really Absalom takes power.
Yeah,
He stole the hearts of the people away.
Yeah, so Absalom returned to Jerusalem, and when he did, he started stealing the hearts of the people.
Yeah, and that took like 5 years of him doing that, sitting at the gate, just saying, "Oh, but if I were king, if I were king, if I were king."
So then, and in 15, David has to get out of Jerusalem.
Because Absalom is just rising in power.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, 16, David is cursed. Absalom takes power.
Okay, David's cursed by Ziba, who kind of lies to him, and
Yep.
Shimei actually just calls him names and throws dust and dirt and rocks at him.
Yeah.
But Absalom coming in, he didn't really become king. People called him king, but he takes power as the king in Jerusalem.
Yep. Okay, 17, Absalom follows Hushai's advice and goes out to fight.
Yeah. So really battled that. I mean, it could be almost just Absalom goes out to fight, but there is this whole dynamic about Hushai the spy.
Right.
Gives us bad counsel, and
Ahithophel's counsel would have been better for Absalom, but Absalom doesn't follow it because of the Lord.
Yeah, it was a turn of the Lord. I mean, it was God's reasoning, God bringing that in. So chapter 17 and verse 14 says, "For the Lord had ordained to defeat the good counsel of Ahithophel, so the Lord might bring harm upon Absalom, who goes out and fights." So 17 is about Absalom really going out and fighting. But this counsel thing is really huge. So Hushai the spy, he follows his counsel. Right. Okay, chapter 18.
18, Joab kills Absalom. David laments.
Yeah, and we almost put kills Absalom in the tree, but we need to, like in our summary, like David lamenting is really huge here.
Yes, it is. So we made room for that.
Yeah, because he laments Saul in chapter 1, his enemy, and he laments Absalom here in chapter 18, his enemy as well. But that's the story where he gets all his hair gets caught in the tree, and that's when he's killed.
Okay, 19, David returns and pardons enemies.
Yeah, these enemies are the same ones that cursed him in chapter 16. And so he's coming in just showing mercy, undeserved mercy, that's for sure.
Okay, 20, Sheba revolts, then beheaded.
Yep, remember this is a guy that revolted. He called Israel together. Hey, let's revolt against Israel. And then he was on the flee, he's on the run, and he came to the city, and David's warriors are going to take down the city. And there's a wise woman who said, no, just cut off his head, throw it over the wall, and the city will be safe. He cut off his head, threw it over the wall, and then David's army said, oh, Sheba's dead, we're good. And so she saved the city. So what was that summary again for 19?
19 is David returns. Oh, no, I'm sorry. 20. Sheba revolts, then beheaded.
Okay. 21.
Saul's 7 sons atone the Gibeonites.
Yeah, and the Gibeonites, that comes from Joshua chapter 9, where they pretend to be from far, far away, and Israel made a covenant with them that you can stay in our land, but you'll be woodcutters and water carriers.
But Saul broke the covenant.
And killed some of them.
Right, and then there was, I think, a plague that the people of Israel were facing, and David learned that it was because of Saul's breaking of the covenant, and so David gave 7 of Saul's sons to the Gibeonites to kill.
Yeah, and it seems so strange, but
it stopped the plague.
Yeah, but like if someone in our lives commits a murder, right? His life needs to be taken. I mean, that's eye for eye, tooth for tooth, life for life sort of deal. And so Saul wasn't around anymore, so it was some of his sons was taken, which seems so brutal, so difficult.
And just to correct myself, it was a famine, not a plague that was going on there.
Well, similar, very close. Okay, chapter 22.
Okay, Psalm 18.
Yep.
Rock and Redeemer.
Rock and Redeemer. Psalm 18 - Rock and Redeemer would be really good for that.
Okay, 23. David's last words and mighty men.
Okay. And these are like, it just says the last words of David. And one of David's last words is what he said is basically, the Lord brought me to power. Just 2 Samuel 7 is sort of all about that. It says in chapter 23, verse 5, does not my house stand so with God? For he has made with me an everlasting covenant. So just trusting on God. And then these mighty men, right? These 30, 33, 37 mighty men who are really the power behind David's reign and rule.
Okay, and then last is 24, David's census, Aruna's threshing floor.
Yeah, and with the census, we know that turned bad. It was the Lord incited the heart against Israel. So God incited David because there was some sin in Israel to punish Israel, and he had this census that he gave. And
there was a 3-day plague, and then God allowed that plague to be stopped by an altar, and the altar was, or the sacrifice on the altar, and the altar was on Aruna's threshing floor that David bought from him.
Which is preparing the way now for Solomon to build the temple.
Right. Because that's where the temple will be built.
Yeah, David bought Aruna's threshing floor, and upon that threshing floor where the altar was built, a nice flat surface. And then that's the very spot where Solomon will build the temple, which we're going to read about starting tomorrow in 1 Kings chapter 1. Okay, so stepping back again, 2 Samuel is about David. It's about the rise and fall of David. So we will see you tomorrow morning in the book of 1 Kings.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.